When you work with Witro Wealth Management, you can count on the Witro Service Standard. The Witro Service Standard is a commitment to their clients. As your chosen financial advisor, their team is committed to going above and beyond, customizing a plan that achieves your goals. They promise to provide you with the knowledge, communication, and resources necessary to make the best decisions for your financial future, all while providing you the outstanding personal customer care you've come to expect from Witro advisors. They're here to help you on your journey. Learn more, visit witroadvisors.com. Affiliated with Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. 100 East 6 Forks Road, Suite 200, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27609. 919-831-2370.
Every time we start a new pod, I want to say, are we recording?
That's good.
I mean, the irony of you asking that question.
Yeah.
People
get a
love it.
What a hoot. Yeah. I mean, they want to hear it because you'll be miles from your microphone anyway, so.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
No, she's close to the microphone.
Easy, Gretchen.
She gets real close to the microphone until she's about to talk. And then it's
every time.
she's just like sitting here like
the
this.
guest comes in, and the guest comes in. It's lean
Oh
back.
my gosh.
Yeah.
How are
That's
you?
right. The old tobacco lean back.
I need an extender bar on this.
Yeah.
I've actually looked at getting you one.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you're taller.
That's so-
what
Yeah, that's
the
the reason.
shit?
Yeah,
so
that's the
nice.
effect she has on most of them.
Man.
are assholes.
Yeah, it's another episode of the 419. The wheels are already off. For Gretchen DeBacker and Matt Killam, I'm Kevin Mullen. Huge thanks to our sponsors, WorkSpring and Witro Wealth Management. I have no idea why they continue to support the podcast, but we are so grateful
Absolutely.
that they do. Good.
Maybe they're not listeners,
Well, that's
which is the only explanation.
Yeah, well,
I
the
can
math
give.
kind of proves that they're not.
oh my goodness. All right, Gretchen,
Yes.
this is your guest.
I'm excited. I think this is my first guest of the year. I don't know, whatever. So
You did the entire live
That's true.
episode,
I
so
did.
you can't claim it's your first guest of the year.
this is my first non-live guest of the year. So this person is a man.
Okay.
I always like to start with that.
Yeah, that's helpful. It's like, guess who?
I have known this
They're
person
wearing a hat.
for quite some time. Here's the thing that's interesting about this person is
Will-
that I'm not sure, because this is a surprise to you, but I don't think that either of you know this person.
Okay.
Okay?
Is it Santa?
No, it's not. Because you know him.
But do I ever?
He has been an educator and a mentor and a driver of mission at a local institution for 35 years.
Wow. Okay.
Before he retired.
Okay.
Inevitably, you'll meet people in Toledo. They'll say, hey, you know, this person, what a great guy. That's what they say. He's amazing. This
Yeah.
is what people say about this person.
Yeah.
He's done so much. He's been kind to so many. He has a great life story. He's the youngest of 8 children
Oh my goodness.
in a very famous Toledo family.
Okay.
I'd like you guys to join me in welcoming Phil Skeldon.
Phil Skeldon.
Hey, 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 hey!
Do you know Phil Skeldon? Kevin?
Do I know Phil Skeldon?
Yeah.
You did?
And it's 11 children, not 8.
I don't like 3 of them.
I don't think Phil does either.
Yes, I've eliminated a few on my own.
I was impressed that I did math that quickly.
When,
Hi, Philly.
so the only thing that threw me off, I was starting to like when you talked about
you
this,
think
and
it
I
was
was
Tom
like,
Cole?
no. At no point did I
Gotta
think
be
Tom
great
Cole.
if it was Tom Cole. Now we're stuck with this boob.
They're going to yell at you if you don't scoot up
Yeah.
at
But-
the mic.
I can
But
see why you
when-
two are
Totally
friends.
uncomfortable.
No, he's not familiar with microphones. No, when you said I don't think either of you know this person,
Oh.
I was like, well, now it's not who I think it was.
Oh, so how do you know Philly?
What do you mean? How do I know?
Did you go to St. John's?
I've known him longer than you have.
Do you listen to the show?
I didn't know that.
And Kevin's dad actually dated my sister.
Okay, so here's
I forgot about that.
Phil Skeldon could be well, we're going to tell everybody who he is, but you'll find in this conversation that Phil could be a 3 degrees of separation for almost every one of the 268,000 people that live in the city of Toledo.
Basically, Toledo's Kevin Bacon.
That's right. So tell us.
I loved you in Wild Things.
Have you seen him in Footloose?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't watch
Well,
that.
he also
I don't watch
dances and
that garbage.
sings.
Yeah.
That's what
sure.
I'm saying.
Right. Okay, so Philly, start with the year of your birth.
Are you going to call him Philly the entire episode?
Everybody calls me that.
Everyone everyone does.
Really?
I have never called you that,
'cause
Mr.
I'm the
Skeldon.
youngest of 11.
Yeah.
And there's 7 boys.
I don't know how to tell this to you, but I've recently found out that 3 of those people aren't related to you.
Because I
Based
said
on
8.
Gretchen.
Adoptions.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and so my dad never wanted to name a son after him.
Okay.
And then after 11 kids, they said they had their fill. And
Yeah.
so he named them after
Had
him.
their fill.
Yes.
Double meaning.
Yeah.
See, Matt?
Yeah, Gretchen,
In
thanks
both,
for the-
It's like
Got
the
that?
name.
Yeah.
Because
She's so helpful to the show,
Because
Phil.
one of the things that I learned a long, long time ago is that there's there's many branches, but there's 2 primary branches to the Skeldons that people know in Toledo. And you have the mud hen Skeldons, and then you have the zoo Skeldons. And you're of the much crazier zoo Skeldons.
I think we are related.
Really?
I think so. Mo Skeldon,
Yeah, Mo's my niece.
I am related to her in some way.
Biblically?
This is a great story.
Is this
that's-
like a DNA thing that you did, or
Oh,
what?
I don't know all the acronyms.
Let's bring out 23andMe.
But yeah, we are related. The Skeldons and the Wombolds.
Oh, yeah, Wombles. Yeah,
we-
they're my
I-
first cousins.
So you and I are related.
Well, look at that.
Yeah.
It's like a
Degree of
family reunion.
separation.
See?
This is your life, Phil. You've won a 46-year-old. I'll be coming home with you this evening.
So let's.
Growing up
Yeah.
in that family, I mean, let's just talk about growing up with like that many people in a house. And then we'll talk about like when you leave the house and,
And the
you have the
crippling
last
information
name
that you
do.
just found out that we're related.
If you can recover
I don't know
from
if you're a
that.
drinker.
This is your water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Growing up, I mean, I tell people I still twitch because I got hit so many times by
Sure.
older siblings, and I mean, they will say that I'm spoiled, but you know, I got hand-me-downs underwear, you know, elastic shit that was already gone. But it was a wonderful childhood, and my
Yeah.
parents did a great job with
Yeah.
those 11 kids, and we're all basically on the same page. You know, when crises happen in life, you usually part of the family goes this way, another family.
Sure.
But our family really has not. I mean, there are political differences in our family, but
Sure.
typically we're all on the same page.
Where'd you grow up?
For a lot of my life, it was in the Old West End.
Okay, where
And
about?
that, on Glenwood and Islington.
Sure.
There were a lot of big Catholic families that lived in that
Huge.
neighborhood at that time.
Huge.
Yeah.
And then my dad was a South Ender.
Okay.
All the time. So as there were like 7 or 8 kids left in the family, we moved out to the South End so he could be closer to the zoo where he was director.
Okay.
So I spent from like 5th grade up in OLPH.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's where I went. So.
So obviously the Skeldon name is huge in Toledo now, right? I mean, the legacy, but I'm curious, like as a child, like were you royalty or like son of celebrity? Like was
Are you
that
comfortable with describing yourself as royalty, Phil?
No, not at all.
Only in private.
I mean, I think, you know, a lot of places that I went, people would always say, are you related to this person or that person?
Yeah.
But I spent most of my childhood growing up in the zoo.
Sure.
I mean, we were at the zoo all the time. I grew up there. I worked there for a little bit. But, I mean, it's just, you know, we were family, you know.
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
was
really
right.
think of myself as anything special, but I did know that, you know, the name was fairly popular in Toledo. I mean, my grandfather, who was the business editor for the Blade, he really is the one who built the zoo, because he was buddies with FDR's head of the WPA.
And a lot of those buildings are WPA buildings, people know.
And he got all the old canal,
Wow. I never knew that.
bricks and stuff from that, and all the old buildings that they tore down. A lot of those are made out of repurposed buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the zoo was sort of his pet project,
Yeah.
and he was sort of the first unpaid director, but he was the business editor of the Blade, and all those buildings he's responsible for.
Is it
basically.
true? Are the stories of your father bringing home animals to the
Yes.
house true? And what are those stories?
Those are all true.
Okay. So you had a tiger as a pet?
We did have some tigers.
that
at
looked
our
like a
house.
trauma response?
That was a twitch. We saw a twitch.
We raised an anteater. It was the first ever raised for, I think, to adulthood in captivity.
But no ants.
In the United
So-
States. No, but
Win-win.
No, but there was also, we had a cheetah that my dad brought home with Dan Danford, who was like the
Yeah.
Jack Hanna
Yeah, sure.
of
Yeah.
of the Toledo area. And he went after one of my older sisters.
The cheetah did? Or
Dan
Dan did?
Danford.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really balanced.
That couple drinks and that guy's
no
all
Danfords.
paused.
No.
Yeah. The Danfords.
Just
We
as
got a
fast
lot of
as-
Danford downloads on this show, Phil. They're all dead. Fire away.
Yeah, but the cheetah and
Which
we had
sister?
My oldest sister, Claudia.
Okay.
And we had snakes loose in our house when we were trying to sell our house in the old West End.
Did that have to be disclosed?
Baby elephants over at the zoo. I mean, we're at our house.
How did he
Was
get
this,
them there?
Was this legal?
I think we
at
know the
that
answer to
time,
that.
I could tell you stories that
Yeah.
probably people would say, "What the?" But at that time, it was.
Well, tell us more boring stories then. Yeah. One time we all went to Office Max.
Yeah. But at that time, I don't think Office Max existed.
It did
But
my heart, Phil.
Yes, but it, it was a great time growing up. And I mean, my dad was the head of the AAZPA in the nation, but it was different at that time. It was
Sure.
really different. There isn't the sort of the ecology and stuff that zoos
Right.
are famous for now. It didn't exist back
Is
then.
anyone in the family involved with the zoo currently? Are you guys on the board or?
No.
It's
No,
hard to
not
say
right
there's
now.
not a relative of his involved in the zoo. I mean, he just learned he's got a relative at the
That's
Metro
true.
Parks.
This
That's
is
true.
true.
That's
So
right.
really
That's true.
anything is possible.
Yes.
When people meet me, they almost immediately think, well, now anything is possible.
Right.
This was never a path for you? I mean, you never fell in love with these animals or having them in your life were like, no, thank you.
No, I mean, I think early on I wanted to get into that.
Yeah.
But then this is a little bit bizarre, but
Most of this has been bizarre.
it is. I got
So-
into archaeology.
Okay.
I grew up in the south end of LPH, and I used to go down to the river,
Yeah.
and there were literally Native Americans eroding into the river.
Yeah.
And so that got me. One time I found.
Did you take the cheetah down there with you?
I didn't. I didn't do that. Was in the old West End,
Oh, okay.
actually. But so I got into that. I got my undergraduate in anthropology, and then I decided I don't want to do this for the rest of my life.
Sure.
So I got into education and got an education degree.
Did you go to the University of Toledo?
I did for
And-
both
and where-
undergrad and masters.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Stritch. So most of our family hit every Catholic high school in the city. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had 3 of my sisters went to Notre Dame. 1 went to Macaulay, which is Toledo
Yep.
Christian now. 2 brothers went to St. John's. 4 of us went to Stritch.
And haven't you been inducted in the Cardinal Stritch Hall of
I
Fame?
have.
Of
I mean,
course he
just
has.
just dropping that.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
Yes.
And so, right from high school to college, living at
Yes.
home, living on campus.
Living at home.
Uh huh.
And then I moved out shortly after I graduated. So.
And did you know what subject you were going to teach? Did you?
I did. I mean, because I was in anthropology and archaeology, I naturally went into
Physical
I got a
education.
certification in history.
Okay.
So I taught history. I taught social studies at St. John's early on.
And so your entire teaching career was at St. John's?
Yes.
Okay. And what grade did you originally start teaching history?
I
Freshman?
no, it was American history, which was sophomores.
Uh-huh.
And I did teach sociology for a few years, which were seniors.
Are you excited about the new things, the new changes to American history we'll be teaching soon?
Please don't get me started on that.
It's a whole new ballgame. I don't know if
No, because
Forget
I mean,
what you learned.
I think as we go
Yeah.
along, you will see that is very personal to me.
Yeah.
I bet. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
So of the 35 years that you were there, what I alluded to in the introduction, it is true. Anytime you say anything, oh, did you have Mr. Skeldon? Oh,
Yeah.
we love Mr. Skeldon. Oh, yes. But you evolved from but only teaching to other aspects of it's sort of administration, and then you started doing mission trips there, correct?
Well,
wow.
early on, I taught like 4 or 5 classes, but I also was in, at that time, it was called their volunteer program. But it became known as the Christian Service Program. And after 2 years, because a Jesuit went out to California for theology, Tom Pipp, who I think
Yep.
Kevin probably knows, and there was actually a divine word priest there because they had the seminary out in Perrysburg area, where all those homes are now. There was a seminary out there, and so he taught. So they left, so it was me. So basically for 33 years, I was in charge of the service program at St. John's.
And what was
33 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long.
I mean, I was there for 35, but 33 in
Yeah.
charge of that program. You know, that
How
program.
did you keep the energy for that?
Oh, that was.
It was a calling?
exciting.
Yeah,
Because
can you
it
talk
was
a little about that.
It was. You saw kids in a whole different light.
Yeah,
You didn't see them as just, a grade in a classroom.
yeah,
You saw them in a whole different light, and
Okay.
like Gretchen said, the core of that program, and it's still there today, is we allowed our students, our juniors and seniors, to go out during the school day to do service work on a weekly basis.
yeah.
And I think that was very important because this is part of the curriculum. And you're doing this every week.
Yeah.
It's not like you got to get 10 hours done or you
Right.
got to get 20 hours done, go do it. This was part of the curriculum. We did reflection work with the guys. And it was a huge part. I mean, there were times when I had 120 kids out in the community during a semester.
Yeah.
And when I first started there, it basically was that local program. But eventually we added on. Now, there was an Appalachian experience back when your dad was at St. John's. They went down to Kentucky, and I think to where Thomas Merton was at Gethsemane.
Okay.
But that was just a few years. But we started an Appalachian program, which
Okay.
still goes on today.
Okay.
And we also started foreign service programs in Latin America primarily.
All right.
And so when the big thing at St. John's for me was to bring these kids to a point where at least they're asking, why? Why is it that this person has to keep coming back to this soup kitchen? Why is it that these people who have disabilities are in this facility and are treated this way? Much of the facilities are wonderful today, but there were questions that kids asked, and that was a point where I said they are starting to learn about their roles in our society and how they can bring about change in society. It wasn't just, I'm going to go and do service work. No, it was, I'm going to do service work so I can learn about the situations that
can
exist
fix
in
the
our
systems
society
and create this.
and how are we going to, it's systemic change.
And
It's
the
amazing-
privileged position that they come at that
Potentially.
with, mostly, more often than not. And so I'm a big fan of the Jesuits, primarily for that.
You had a
I had an
Jesuit
uncle that was a
yeah.
priest, yep. But also because of that whole men for others concept and what they do at St. John's, which is a service model. I mean, I think that it's so amazing that St. John's has that. Again, don't go just out and do 10 hours. That it's part of the curriculum. And is that something that's still a value that's happening at St. John's?
Yeah, I believe it is. I mean, there's a new president at St. John's. I don't know if Kevin's met him, but it's Carl Ertl who was actually the president at Walsh Jesuit in Akron, which is literally the same building as St. John's.
Okay.
They were built at the same time. And I believe that it's still going on. I know this week they're doing sort of an environmental justice week. So I think it's still definitely going there. Yeah.
I would often, when I talk about St. John's, and I would promote it to families that are considering, sending their son to St. John's, the majority of what I would promote is the work that you did and the program that you built. And you, right? I mean, as a mentor and as a leader and as someone that someone can grow up and look and go, if my son grows up to be like that guy, yeah, we've done something right.
We've done it right.
And the program, I mean,
And
it's
a lot of things wrong.
but I will say,
We're looking for a 50-50 split here. Yeah.
there's so many aspects to the Christian service program at St. John's and the foreign service trips and sort of where the tentacles and where all of those arms have gone. You guys may know I was in Honduras a year or
Rotary,
so
right?
ago
Yeah.
with Rotary.
Very little that you say I listened to.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay.
So if you could just
But
tell us again.
I traveled not just with Rotary, but also with someone from from International Samaritan, which used to be called Central American Ministries, which was
started
born
at St. John's.
out of so this
Fascinating.
organization out of Ann Arbor that has
Works
that
with
supports
people in the
garbage
garbage.
dump communities.
I do remember you saying this.
And so it's, for me to be able to go to, I had a chance to go to Guatemala. I do want to talk about this because I don't know if you remember this.
I certainly remember it. I remember having to tell you no.
Yeah.
Oh,
And how you handled that.
let's have that story.
No, it was beautiful how he handled it. And I'm sure he was torn apart.
Is this as a student?
Yes, as a student.
I was heartbroken. My brother had a life-changing experience going to Guatemala and staying with a family as he was in between his junior and senior year.
Which brother?
My brother Matt.
Okay.
So you've met.
Yeah,
Lives,
yep.
not far from you, and so so then it became my turn to apply, and I was a leader in the school. I felt going in that this
It's a shoo-in.
This kind of feels like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm outgoing. I can tell
Are
the
you
story.
feeling bad about this now?
No.
I'm feeling real shitty
No,
about
no,
it.
no,
But
you should-
I
no, you
remember
shouldn't.
it distinctly.
That's what Kevin
And so,
does to
all right,
anyone
so,
who, yeah.
so I know it from my side, but I'm curious to hear from your side.
What,
I heard he
'Cause
just
I-
hated you.
That's also true.
Well, no, I
provide some more
Yeah,
context to this,
so what did he
please.
say no to?
To me, go. So I
Oh.
was not allowed to go. So there's a
there
ton
was
of
a
students
limited
that,
amount of students that
okay,
can go.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
all
so
right.
I did not get selected to go on the trip, and I was heartbroken.
Yeah.
And we'll come back and talk about the student piece of this a little bit, but I can give my end to the story.
Sure.
Is I had an opportunity after college to go with St. John's on one of those trips. And it was in that moment when I was there and seeing this that I knew that Mr. Skeldon was right, that I was not ready, that would not have been, I didn't have the maturity to ask the question why and to not completely lose myself in not finding the answer or
Yeah.
not liking the answer.
Are you hearing this for the first time?
I'm hearing this thing,
Yeah.
but again, how he handled it, you would have students whose parents would call you and
Oh, I
say,
bet.
why is this?
My parents didn't love me, so you don't have to worry about that.
No, but I'm just saying, Kevin's response and how he handled that, I distinctly remember. I don't remember telling every kid, but I remember that situation, and I remember how he'd handled it.
Yeah.
And
You thought he did
he
well.
made it easy on me. I'm sure he was torn apart, but
Yeah.
he made it easy on me.
And there's other opportunities, right? So I ended up going to, I think I went on Appalachian trip, although actually I think I may have done that as an adult as well. I think you just cut me out of your entire program, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. Yeah.
Great program, Phil.
Yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of Repressed
That's right.
Trauma.
Turning a life to crime.
They're both crying.
And I'm related to you. The hits just keep on coming.
Just leave.
I think Matt asked a great question about how you keep that energy going. What are obviously you remember
And I'm
an
gonna
interaction
double
with me, but what are some other interactions or stories that you go, damn it, I'm doing what I was supposed to do.
And if I could layer on this now, this clearly isn't your DNA, but people are kids these days or this next generation. 10 years would be a long run running a program of any kind. This is 30 plus years, and I can't imagine if there weren't times like this. You're I've had to tell the last kid no that I'm interested in doing. Right? And you talked about it a little bit, but and if you don't mind, just sort of elaborating on what kept you going. There's challenges of it, telling kids no, the meaning of it, that. This is incredible, and I know it's every day to you, and you are a humble person, but
Yeah, I think it goes back to two things. I think it goes back to my parents.
Yeah.
And my parents were very much justice-oriented individuals, especially my mom.
and they're both from originally.
They're both from this. She was a Wombold.
Okay,
Okay.
gotcha.
She was your great cousin.
And she was, Andy Devine, the former juvenile
court judge.
Judge Devine.
judge.
Yep.
He was a good friend of our families. They lived in the old West End with us. We knew all their kids. They knew us. My mom felt that he was letting some like slum landlords off.
Okay.
So she and the old West End women took a bunch of dead rats in plastic bags into his courtroom. And so it's that type of
Yeah.
experience.
She was a badass, yeah.
Andy came back to our house that night and talked
With the
her and
rats.
said, her name was Bernadine. She goes, Bernie, you got to help us. You got to help me on this. You can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
But, but that was, and that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I was raised and spiritually directed by the Jesuits.
Okay.
And, like that term, men for others, really most Jesuit schools now are saying men for and with others, that we're on this journey with these marginalized people. But that comes from a guy named Pedro Rupe, who used to be the head of the Jesuits. And he was in, I think, either Hiroshima or Nagasaki during the bombing. He was a Jesuit priest there at that time and is credited with saving hundreds of people's lives. So that's sort of what the Jesuit makeup, that's how I was trained. And when you see a kid move from, God, I don't want to do this, to,
How can I not?
how can I not?
Yeah.
These people are important to me. I don't know why they're in the situation than they are. And then they start asking for, what more can we do?
Yeah.
Let's go to Appalachia. Let's go to these foreign service projects. And it's wonderful to see those kids advance and mature in their sense of justice and their care for the marginalized people. And, not many people who went overseas were going to come back and be Mother Teresa's.
Sure.
It just wasn't going to happen.
Right.
But they learned from the people in Guatemala, as I'm sure you did in Honduras, and to say, how can I take what I've learned from those people and honor them by doing it here in Toledo or in my part of the country?
Yeah.
So it was a joy. I mean, versus being in a classroom every minute of every day,
Yeah.
I'd take that
Sure.
because I think that's the Jesuit model.
Yeah.
And I was living out the Jesuit model.
What was the first organization that you placed students at?
It was either St. Mary's School, which was a Jesuit parish right down near Central Catholic, which still
Yeah.
buildings are still there, or it was Sunshine,
Okay.
where
Wow. I mean,
That's full
knowing,
circle.
knowing
Yeah.
your story, let's talk a little bit about that, but knowing your story for that to be, and I knew that was early.
yeah,
I knew Sunshine
that
was
was I
early.
think when they started the service program at St. John's, when they opened the school, like when your dad was there. That was
When his dad was at St. John's?
yes,
Yeah.
even slightly before, but probably when your dad was a freshman or something like
Yeah,
that.
so my dad graduated in 1972.
And it opened, I think the first graduating class was in '69.
Yep.
And so it was, those I know were the first two agencies, and they may have been the first two agencies that I sent them to. But by the time I got there, there were probably 30 or 40 agencies that we were dealing with. But yeah, I mean, the reason why Gretchen has said full circle is because I sent kids there for, at that time, probably 25 years. And then I have a daughter who's special needs.
Okay.
And
How old is she?
she is 20
All right,
right
what's her
now.
name?
Lily.
All right.
And so when you talked about the politics going on now,
Yes, sir.
I mean, recently and with
100%.
possibility
Yeah.
of Medicaid cuts, she is on a Medicaid waiver.
Right?
And so,
And she wouldn't be cared for there without that, likely.
no, I mean,
It'd be
they're,
cost prohibitive for her and many, many,
Many,
many, many,
yeah.
many,
And
many
as a
other people.
career Catholic educator,
that's,
you're not going to self-fund that either.
I don't know if I can't afford to self-fund it. Now, Gretchen's good friend, who was my wife, had a very good job and set Lily and me up really well. But, that would be, that would be impossible.
Yeah.
And it would be impossible to bring her back to my house because of her needs.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable talking about kind of that transition of, I mean, Lily
Well, absolutely.
living with you to now living at Sunshine?
Yeah.
As a parent, I can't imagine making that decision. But what has life progressed to for Lily with the support of
And
Sunshine?
explain a little bit about what Sunshine's mission is before, just in case.
Yeah, well, it's Sunshine Communities. Now, that used to be called Sunshine Children's Home, and that's what everybody knew it as, and a lot of people still know it that way, but it's Sunshine Communities, Inc. And, I mean, their mission, they have over 400 employees. They have, I'm not sure how many residents at their base facility. It's probably 100 or more. And then they have about 20 group homes out in the community. So my daughter is in one of those group homes. And to take you back to try to answer your question, so when Gretchen's best friend, which was my wife, which was Gretchen, she died after a 15-year battle with breast cancer. And so I had to raise Lily by myself for 6 years. And after 6 years, I knew I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, sure.
And I distinctly remember when Gretchen came into Gretchen's hospital room and had a sign over, as legal documents, sign over, okay, if she has to go on a vent, what do we do? You know, stuff like that. And there wasn't a decision that I had to make with my wife that was as tough as saying yes to Sunshine. I mean, I blubbered like a baby for 2 or 3 days. You know, they usually like to gradually get the person in, so they will put them in their respite house for a few days. And Lily never cries. She was crying that weekend because she knew what was coming. So that was tough. But I mean, I can't do it by myself. I think there are a lot of people out there who try to the nth degree to raise their kid. And I think I'm a better dad to Lily.
You see her all the time.
I see her 3 or 4 times a week. I'm a better dad to Lily because I don't have to worry about changing her diapers. I don't have to worry about if she's having a seizure, those types of things. Sunshine does that. Now, Sunshine has had battles and difficulties, just like nursing homes have had, especially during COVID with, getting workers and stuff, but I think they're really solid right now. And it's just this government thing right now is really scary.
Are they saying anything to families about what they anticipate
Yes,
they happen?
they have kept families on board. I think they feel that they are in. I think they feel that they're in a good situation right now, but time will tell. In fact, I just talked with Jason Abadili, who's the head of Sunshine, yesterday about this, and he thinks they're in an okay spot right now.
I know we don't have to talk about the administration and all that, but it just dawns on me, as we sit here, that they're the antithesis of the kind of man that you are, and that St. John's tries to bring up, right? A man that's for and with someone else is our president. And there's no level of intolerance or cruelty or lack of information that it seems to be a bottomless pit of those kinds of things.
Yeah, I will try to be as objective as I possibly can in dealing with that. I think there are many people I have siblings who support the president. And I think that that they really feel that they're trying to do good for people. And I've had former students on Facebook who have responded that way. And I've had to say, wait a minute. If this procedural vote becomes law, they're going to have to cut maybe $800 billion from Medicaid. And that is directly going to impact me. It's not something, hey, this is directly impacting me. So
But I don't
It's
think
a tough
that
thing.
it's not, your position is not a self-serving one. I think that writ large, though, you would agree, I think you would, about, equity and support
Inclusion.
for people that are in poverty and the people that need mental health treatment and all of those kinds of things. I know that you are motivated because of how that would impact you and Lily, but it's not.
I mean, Gretchen, how political do you want to get here? Is
So
my
I,
question.
let me ask
Just
a question.
start swearing.
Yeah, let me ask a question like sort of in the same lane, but maybe let's
Yeah.
pivot a little bit. But I mean, you've had a career of teaching and inspiring social justice,
Yeah.
which by its nature means that you have, as a career, observed social injustice.
Absolutely.
So how do you teach someone to approach that? I mean, as you said, like you try to approach this sort of as neutral as possible, but how do you teach someone to view social injustice and deconstruct it into a way that doesn't have you
What's your strategy?
jumping?
Sometimes in spite themselves.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean,
You
it
know,
doesn't
I-
have you jumping off a bridge.
I honestly believe it's experience. If you go down to the developing world and work with people who live off the garbage dump in Guatemala City, and people who know what garbage truck comes from which restaurant, and they all massively attack that truck. If you work with those people, you can't say that those people are lazy or they're this or they're that, because everybody that I've worked with in the developing world and even people on the margins here, the people in the developing world don't want to leave their home. It's because they have to. It's because of persecution from the government, or it's because of, they want to feed their kids. It's all sorts of stuff like that. So I think experience is huge. And I think a lot of people who are saying certain things about certain populations have never had any
That's probably
experience
true.
with
I
them.
hope that that's true.
I hope that that's true. I mean, it
So-
gives them an out, I guess,
Or,
even.
but when I was at St. John's, if we would send some student into the central city to do service work, we would always process with them, because you can reinforce stereotypes.
100%.
Yeah.
If you
Yes.
just send somebody into a place and don't do any reflection with them, any talking
That's
with them.
such an important part
So
of that
it's,
process.
I mean, I've always said that at least 50% of the process of doing service work is reflection. And I think you have to do that, because you can reinforce stereotypes.
How, on a granular level, how much reflection do you participate in a daily or weekly effort to be you?
Right
walking-
now,
Yeah.
well, right now, I am actually, I actually go to Trinity Episcopal Church now.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know about Trinity Episcopal,
Yeah.
but they are an extremely
Downtown, right?
progressive,
Absolutely.
progressive church in terms of everybody on the margin. I mean, as a heterosexual male in that church, I am a minority.
Right.
And so I am, I'm the guy who's the community outreach guys there is a guy named George Benson, not the guitarist and the singer, but you may know George here in town. But like we do a Sunday breakfast there. We do a lot of reflection and talking at that church. So that's been a savior to me.
I bet.
Because for me, I mean, in many respects, St. John's was my life. And exposing students to the marginalized was my life. And so when I retired, I didn't have that. Trinity Episcopal has really sort of filled in that gap.
Oh, go ahead.
Was there a gap between Phil at St. John's and then this next? Was there an identity crisis? Were you already so busy? Are you an incredibly healthy person? It would be difficult for me you dedicated 33 years to not just an institution, to a philosophy, right? And you'll
Yeah.
always be connected to it. But did you pick up right away at your next stop, or was there a week when you're saying, now who the hell am I?
Yeah, I think when I retired, I even threw myself. When you retire, you have to find purpose in life.
You're right. I believe that.
You can't just. So I threw myself. So when I was dealing with my late wife and helping her with her battle, and then having to take care of my daughter, I sort of just didn't do much.
Yeah.
Work, come home, work, come home.
Yeah.
And so after Lily was in Sunshine, I started to get back into some things that I do, and then I retired, and I had already sort of found that purpose. Trinity is it. I do a lot of theater. I'm on the board up at the Croswell Opera House, and I
cool.
do some shows up there.
Yeah.
So theater's come back into my life, which
We're all
for
grateful
12
for
or
that.
15 years I didn't have it
Yeah,
because I was taking care of.
In the theater is as a result of your mom and your dad's DNA. You're just your mom's, just your dad's. Or you
No,
found
I
it
don't think
yourself?
anybody's DNA. I
Philly
think
has one of the best and most beautiful local voices. He sings at churches. He
Yeah.
sings at weddings. He stars in shows.
amazing.
Yeah.
I think the very first show I ever saw you in, and I'm probably going to get this wrong. but-
Pirates of Penzance.
No, Little Shop of Horrors, right?
Palladium?
Little Shop of Horrors at the Rep.
Yeah, you probably did.
That was the best show. He
what
has
role
the
were
best
you?
voice.
I
He
played
was Seymour. But he
Yeah.
was most recently just, you played the bad guy in
I
Newsies.
played Joseph Pulitzer in
Yes.
Newsies up at the Croswell.
Was there a favorite role you played that was still makes you fuzzy? To
You
think
know,
about?
I would say either Seymour
Yeah.
That
or
was the best show.
we did Candide at the university.
Okay.
And I played Candide, and we ended up taking that show we were voted to take it to the American College Theater
Oh, wow.
Festival, which was a huge thing. But
What was the first step onto on the stage, literally?
Yeah, where did you
High school.
find? Was it
Okay.
high school, and
Terrified, felt natural right away.
I always felt that I could sing.
Yeah.
My brothers and sisters would just tell me to shut up.
Yeah, that sounds like a
They
good-
wanted you to do
I
more of an animal
literally-
act?
I literally had to do this by
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, also your voice would make the predators who are living in your home aware of your presence.
It might be a mating call of some unknown.
Would know where we were hiding.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the next show? Are you working on anything at
I
Croswell right
just did.
Fast and the Furious 12.
No, I just did Captain Brackett
now? What?
for the Opera House or for Toledo Opera.
Is that South Pacific?
Yes, Jim Norman, who's the head of the opera, called me about 2.5 weeks before
See,
that
he's
show
a guy
went
that
on
gets the call.
and
to
said,
come and do
"Hey,
stuff
our
because
guy
he's that
just
good."
quit.
Oh,
Can you do this?" It was a non-singing role, but he has a heck of a lot of lines. So,
Yeah.
but I got to a point where I could bullshit my way through. You know, I felt comfortable enough to
I'm
where I could
familiar with the
bullshit. Yes.
Yeah.
so what? Is there anything you're not going to be in?
I don't, not right now. I want to go and I may go back to England this summer and do some more hiking. So I just wanted to leave it open.
Yeah.
Is there a show that you haven't done that you've always wanted to, or a role? Maybe you've done the show, but you didn't have the role
Because I
you
have one.
wanted.
I have one for you.
Of course she does.
Yeah, I really can't think of a show really, but I know at the Croswell this summer or this fall they're doing Parade, which everybody
Oh.
is auditioning for. I'm not sure I'm going to audition for it.
Do you ever get just kind of wild? You're like, man, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Oh, sure.
I mean, from a high school to getting a call from the Toledo
Yeah.
Opera, that's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really love the process.
Tell it to me about that.
Well, I mean, I really love developing the characters and playing around with the characters and getting it more to where it's second nature than necessarily going on stage in front of an audience.
Okay.
I think initially there was always that, wow, this is cool, I'm in front of an audience. But now I really love the process. And I'm typecasted now as the prick. 'Cause
Okay.
I was
Is
the
that
prick
true?
in South
Yeah.
Pacific.
Just because
I
of
was the
Pulitzer?
prick in Newsies. Yeah.
Well, we're just meeting. That sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
Well, tell
But
me.
the part, before we move on, the part I think you need is Curly in Oklahoma.
I've done it.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
I
What do you
I
listen
knew-
to in the car or when you're
Besides our
when you're
podcast.
hiking? I'm sure. Yeah.
Do not listen to our podcast while you're hiking because you might make a sharp
I
right.
listen to all sorts of music, but I'm a little bit odd in that respect because I was the youngest of 11, and they all grew up in the Old West End, and so they all grew up with Motown.
Yeah.
So
So you
I
hate
had
it
a-
or love it?
No, I love Motown.
Okay. All right. Because
I
that can
love
go
it.
one. That can go one of two ways. Sometimes.
I love Motown. I love a lot of funk, but since high school, I've been in theater, so I love musical theater music
Yeah.
also. So,
Okay.
but I love any type.
Where
of
did you meet your bride?
I met Gretchen. We had known each other because she sung a lot around town. I sung a lot.
I bet she did.
But
You can hit
Gretchen,
it.
you.
Yeah, it was me. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got confused with the names.
No, I was. That was a
I
shame.
Oh,
sang
right.
a few times with Gretchen.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Here. But
Against his will.
But we actually went to, she went to Blessed Sacrament, I went to Corpus Christi, and there was the sort of the youth or adult minister there was a guy named Push. Do you know Push?
I don't.
Tom.
Thomas Joseph Eugene Pushevich. And he ran sort
Is
of
he,
a Bible study, and all of our friends were in this, and that's where I met her.
But the hilarious part of this story is, which
Yeah,
Bill won't tell, is
do
that
your whole eulogy
Gretchen was like obsessed with Christmas. She loved it. She started getting ready in November, and Philly, they were at this Bible study, and Philly asked her out like on, I don't know, December 2nd or 3rd.
And how old are we at this
They're
point?
40s, 39.
Yeah, I think late 30s.
And she texted, or I don't think we had text then. She called and was like, I don't understand what this Phil guy's up to. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Phil
She's
guy's
like,
up to?
Doesn't he know that it's Christmas? And I'm like, it's December 3rd.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Right.
I am busy. I'm getting stuff ready. And I just don't think I can make any time to go out before
Yeah.
Christmas. But I think she ultimately did.
I think we
I think
did.
you won her over.
I think we did.
Yeah.
Safe to say that she made some time for you.
Yeah.
She did. She was a joy.
Yeah. Can we? Obviously, I know a little bit from Gretchen, but if you don't mind talking a little bit about everything that made her.
I
so
mean,
important.
she literally, I mean, I know a lot of people say this about their spouses, but she literally lit up every
Yeah,
room.
I've never said that.
Yeah.
Nor has it been
Well, I
said
know
about
Kevin
him.
is, so.
No, I meant me. Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
No one has ever said that about Matt. That's what.
yeah.
But no, she was wonderful. She was very successful. She, I don't think, had a political bone in her body. She
Yeah.
just was about, when you were with Gretchen, Gretchen was always late. So we did fundraisers after she passed, and
Yes.
we called it fashionably late.
Absolutely.
Because she was always late. Most of the time she was late because you were her focus.
Yeah.
And if she was dealing with you, she lost track of time.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
There were times when we were ready to go to an event, we were all ready, and she would find
Yeah. A
shit
little chore to do.
Yeah.
She came late. I mean, she came early to something at one point. I remember we had a whole conversation about it because she was like, well, I'm here. She's like, I'm not missing anything. She's like, I could have gotten here 15 minutes from now.
Yeah.
And it would have been
This is what
the
all the
exact-
hubbub was about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would have been the exact same situation.
I
I
came
didn't miss a
early
damn
for
thing.
More
this.
Christmas
Yes.
planning, and you
Exactly.
wasted 15 minutes of
Yeah.
Christmas planning.
Exactly.
I've never seen a woman argue herself onto planes.
Oh, that was the other thing.
Because
She was late in
late.
flights. She was
Yeah.
running. She was an airport runner. I mean, it
And
was,
she was, one story about Gretchen is she was voted like Target's
salesperson of the
sales.
year. Sales rep
She
of the year.
She worked for Libby Glass,
Okay.
but she was Target's like, I'm trying to think of the word, but it's
Wasn't it
not salesperson, but it's like
Account of the year or something
the
like that?
relationship with Libby. She was that person of the year for Target in Minneapolis.
How about that? Yeah.
And she was banned from Target here locally because she had made so many returns.
Yeah. You're kidding me.
She would never try anything on.
Yeah.
And
she
it was always
It was
black.
after Lily was born, and so there were all these gifts, and she was just always doing these little transactions. She'd have
When she came home
receipts
from
and
when she received the notice from Target, How did that land?
She
at
had
the home?
friends go to Target and return stuff.
Sure, but how was that
did it.
discussed? How was she notified that this? Was,
I can't
I think
remember.
it was at the customer service.
Yeah.
They just said, "Look, we can't keep doing this with
Yeah,
you."
this place isn't big enough back here to hold this.
And
shit
there
that-
was stuff in her closet that she
Oh
had
my
never
God.
tried on or anything like
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember being at St. John's when Gretchen passed, and seeing the community rally. You want to hope that you put yourself in a position where people, want to be there and support you.
Yeah.
But to see the community, rally around you, certainly a testament to you and Gretchen. But I remember the basketball team. We did a game, and they wore pink.
Like a pink out,
They
yeah.
wore pink jerseys.
Do you remember?
And as
I
an all
think
guest,
Lily
that?
still has the jersey.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Do
Yeah,
you
I mean, it's,
remember that time, like feeling the support and
Totally.
or
I
do you
mean,
just like just so much to go through?
no, our president at that time basically told me, don't come back. I mean, I was probably out for a couple months.
Yeah.
And he just said, don't come back. I don't want you back in the building. There were a few times I came back, and there were people who just, I mean, because, in many respects, that was my home.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But, I think one thing about that is, one of Gretchen's good friends was Father Dave Nuss. And did you make a Kairos at St. John's?
I did.
Which is the senior retreat,
Okay. Gotcha.
which means God's time. And because there were guys who had just come back from the Kairos retreat and who came to the funeral, Dave Nuss worked that into his homily or his sermon, about Kairos, and that Gretchen knew about God's time because you were everything to her when she was talking with you. So, yeah, I was blessed.
Yeah.
I only had her for about 10 years, but I was blessed.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
Yeah.
She was hardly annoying at all, ever.
How
She
did
was
you meet-
annoying.
How did you meet
She
her,
was annoying.
Gretchen?
I met her because we were both 6 feet tall German women named Gretchen, in part, but also because we had
and
sufficient
there's a
grounds.
small
There's small.
organization
It's,
that
again, it's a
represents you
Facebook group.
guys nationally.
But it's
Yeah.
she worked for Libby, and they were in the Ohio building downtown, and we had sufficient grounds in the lobby,
Okay.
and so she would come in and get coffee, and then we
you
just
met across the counter. Oh, I love that.
started talking.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, it seems like a million years ago.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for depressing
Incredible.
us, Philly.
What? All right, so we.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I usually cry during all of our podcasts.
So you had a unique, just going back to the start of the podcast, you had a unique childhood, sort of growing up with behind the scenes passes to Toledo.
Yeah.
I'm curious your thoughts on the community today and what you love about Toledo. Don't you flip your hat around, you son of a bitch.
I'm just listening to our guest.
And then kind of what you love about Toledo now, and maybe thoughts on what does Toledo still need?
Well, I think there's two things. I think when my dad was at the zoo, one of the last things he was trying to do was to turn the zoo over to a society, because it was run by the city. So he might have a guy who was a garbage man the day before or worked in the sewer department who had to feed the lions the next day because he bumped in.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so he was trying to get the zoo over to a society like it is now. So I think he would be overjoyed at where the zoo is
That's
right
wonderful
now.
to hear.
I think in terms of the city, I think my Uncle Ned was really a shaker and a mover in this town. He's the father of Tina, who was the former commissioner. But I mean, he worked with Republican mayors. He worked with Democratic mayors. He was good friends with Lud Ashley and Tip O'Neill. And I think he would be overjoyed at how the young people in this community, are bringing downtown back and moving the city in a wonderful direction. I think he would be, the former Mud Hen Stadium was named after him because he was credited with bringing AAA baseball back to Toledo in the 1950s. So I think he would be, and Tina worked a lot on that stadium, and I think you'd be overjoyed at the Mud Hen Stadium downtown and what's going on there. Yeah, I think they both would be.
What
And my grandfather, I think, would be overjoyed at
That's
what's
so nice
going
to
on.
hear.
What was Ned? What were the Skeldon brothers' relationship like, if you know? I mean, did you guys get together with both families?
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the time. And it's not just, my dad had, I think,
Was
three or
my
four
part of the family
other.
allowed in the house, or we were kept out?
I think
You
you
were
were
at the
kept
zoo.
out. Are you part of the Womble side?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
probably why.
Yeah.
No.
What were these
I
family
love-
gatherings?
He talked about the folks that fed the lions.
Yes.
You were the one that came in after the lion
yeah.
ate.
Yeah, that is an
Yeah.
important distinction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get to pet the animal.
I can't remember where we were.
The
on that.
brothers.
Yeah, so there are like 3 or 4 other brothers.
Okay.
And 2 sisters. And they were a huge military family. I had a uncle whose last base was, he was the head of the Presidio out in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
He was
Sure.
I think a 3-star general. And he was on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So they were a huge military family.
I would say so. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
But Ned was the youngest of the family. He was 2 years younger than my dad. They both went to Central Catholic, graduated from there. So
You are part of a family that, I mean, certainly has such a strong legacy in Toledo. I'm curious as we wrap up, to throw a really heavy question at you.
I'm not going to cry again.
okay.
What do you want your legacy to be?
You know, I think I want my legacy to be. I think it goes back to the job at St. John's and what I did there. I mean, it was a job, but it really was a mission, and to really have. You know, one other thing that we started at St. John's, which I think answers your question, and Mark Dubelak from St. Ursula started it with me at St. Ursula, is the Labra program, where they go out every Monday night into the central city and work with the poor and feed the poor. And Dr. Richard Pat, who does all the medical missions out of Toledo, is a Mercy Hospital doctor. He brings his medical team, all the university students out. And it's been going on for like 11 or 12 years, every Monday night. So I think it's just to help people interact with those who live on the margins, because I think if you interact with people who live on the margins and them with people who are not on the margins, I think there's an understanding that occurs, and I think we need that tremendously in our country. So to answer your question, I would say that I hope that I've done something, especially for young men in this city, to really work and experience the marginalized people in this population.
I can't talk about the other thousands of kids that came across you in the building, but I can tell you've certainly done that for me. So thank you.
Kevin.
I think you've done it. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Well,
Philly,
nailed
thank you
it.
so much for being here.
Yeah,
I'm
no
so
kidding.
happy that our listeners are going to be able to hear about you and your impact, and we love you.
And you wanted me to go political, but I didn't.
Well,
But you tried. You pushed
I did.
hard.
You
I
really
did.
tried. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just call you later. We'll talk about it.
Yeah. We can just shut these things off and talk about it right now.
All right. Thank you so much, Phil Skeldon, for
Thanks,
being
Phil.
our guest, and thanks to our sponsors, Wheatro Wealth Management and WorkSpring, for their support of the 419. For Gretchen DeBacker and Matt Killam, I'm Kevin Mullen. We'll see you back in another episode of the 419.
Thank you.
Join WorkSpring today. As a WorkSpring member, you'll gain exclusive access to invaluable resources, on-demand support, discounted training, events, and HR solutions, plus so much more. Your yearly dues are based on the size of your employee base and the type of organization. So reach out to Russ Wozniak, the Member Experience Director at WorkSpring, at 419-390-4527 or russ.wozniak@workspring.org with any questions you may have. Not quite sure what solution you need? Connect with an HR consultant at WorkSpring today. Learn more at workspring.org.